Today on 10 Minute IT Jams, we have Chris Fisher, who is the Head of Security Engineering at Vectra AI. So Vectra is a cybersecurity company specializing in network detection and response solutions for cloud data center and enterprise infrastructures, with its work focusing heavily on conclusive incident investigations and AI-assisted threat hunting. Welcome to the Jam, Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
No worries. So first off, can you tell me and the audience, for an IT manager that hasn't worked with Vectra before, what are your key products and offerings?
Yeah, sure. I think if you look at where Vectra sits and what we are as an organization, we're very heavily focused in the NDR category. It's an area that we've been looking at and we've been working in for quite a long time. Vectra as an organization was established in 2010 and has been working with AI and looking at ways that we can leverage machine learning to be able to identify threats on the network. Now established in 2010, first ship product around 2014, we spent a lot of time looking at machine learning and the areas that it can be useful in that security arena. And really the challenge that we were looking to solve at that time was, how do we reduce the attacker dwell time inside of an organization? And the way that we wanted to do it was without introducing large amounts of noise into the modern environment. So our focus has been around AI and machine learning, and we take a unique approach to this. We combine both supervised and unsupervised machine learning with a 4-layer neural network to be able to identify threats on the network. And when I mean network, I'm not just talking about traditional data center. We're talking about cloud, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and really give that visibility back to the security operations center. Now, the approach that we really want to take is, how do we drive efficiency in that security operations center? All the customers that I speak to today and the organizations, just about everyone is saying they're getting so much information coming into that SOC that they're struggling to keep up with just what is noise and what is a genuine attack. And attackers are aware of this, and certainly as we've added complexities of things like cloud, software as a service, and we start pulling in that telemetry, it's just adding more and more and more. So we really want to be able to help an analyst pinpoint where the challenge is inside an organization, find that really critical host or really critical account, and allow them to start their investigation from there. And that's really where the focus of what we're doing and what we're trying to deliver for our customers. And we've got numerous examples where customers have been able to really save time. And it's not about replacing headcounts or anything like that in a security operations center. It's genuinely about, how do we help an analyst identify and pinpoint and really cut down that dwell time and stop an attack in its early stages before it causes a real problem, which is where we see those data breaches.
Right, yeah. So specifically, what are the most recent improvements in your products, or any specific solutions that you use on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think if we look at just a general trend in the market, we've obviously seen with what the pandemic has done for a lot of organizations with work from home, having to switch to a lot of online services. And if I think back to last year, the trend was all around digital transformation. And if we look at the runway that people had for digital transformation, it was, we've got 3, 4, 5-year projects that are going to be delivering, this new platform that we need in order to be successful in the future. Well, I think the pandemic squished that down to 6 months. So a lot of organizations that I speak to are like, we are ramping up our services so incredibly quickly in cloud and how we deliver these services, that the challenge that we now have is, how do we do this securely and how do we do it in a way that makes sense? And this is really where the area of focus that we've come from, and where we look at our innovations and what we've been delivering to market, has been very heavily around, how do we understand those cloud-based attacks? How do we look at what attackers do in that world, especially when you think of things like Office 365? We've seen the Australian Prime Minister get up and talk about malicious applications that have caused issues for government organizations. And this is real. This is a challenge that our customers are facing. So how do we help with that? But then how do we also help those business systems that are being put into a cloud native world, where an application is not the same as what it used to be on premise? We don't have necessarily an underlying operating system to deal with. It can be difficult to place agents in there. They're turned on and turned off for different periods of time. This is really where we feel the network in that space is really going to help. And it's that cloud network and getting visibility into that, tying that back into what we see in traditional on-premise. And the hybrid world is going to be around for a long time. We're still going to have legacy applications that we need to be able to protect, but we also need to be able to identify threats as they're coming through. And as we see some of the examples, you know, we're seeing ransomware specifically starting to pivot around in some of these environments. We're starting to see some of the early stages, and it's still the traditional, typically try and fish a user into doing something, giving some level of access or some form of privilege. But we're seeing that hop from Office 365 to on-premise and vice versa. So having that single view to be able to identify what's happening in the environment, and by environment, it means this is your Office 365 tenant. This is your on-premise data center. This is your AWS infrastructure as a service. And how do we combine all of these? Because an attacker is going to pivot through those if they can, and they're going to move incredibly quickly. So we've really focused in on what we can deliver with that. And when we look at AI, we're focusing really on attacker behavior. And from an attacker's standpoint, if we look at the tools, the infrastructure they use, it's really easy to change. But their behavior is not easy to change. And this is why we focus on behavior, because it really gives us the long tail in terms of detection capability and helps us move forward rather than having to rely on updates to be able to identify the latest piece of malware. And if you think of ransomware and what we would typically see, it's that user clicks on something, there's some form of user initiated start sequence. From there, there's a level of command and control that an attacker will have on that particular device or the account that they can access through something like Office 365. They will do their reconnaissance, they'll pivot laterally through the environment, identify that information they want to get, exfiltrate that information, then do the encryption. Now, this behavior is consistent, but that command and control infrastructure changes all the time. The dropper they use, that piece of malware they use to drop down to gain that command and control, changes all the time. So this is really why we focus in on the behaviors. And then what we want to be able to provide as part of that efficiency that we look for from a security operations center is really giving that end-to-end story. And I think of all the investigations that I've worked on, that I've worked on with customers, there's a number of questions that always get asked by senior management. And that is, how did they get in? What did they do? Where did they go? What did they take? And the one that probably doesn't get asked enough is, are they still doing it? And we really want to make sure that we can provide that end-to-end visibility and puzzle and piece that all together for an organization to do it incredibly quickly, so they're not spending huge amounts of cycles looking at that. Because I think in the attack lifecycle, time is really the key element. The faster that you can get on top of it, the faster that you can get notification out, the faster that you can deal with it, the less impact it has on an organization.
Right, yeah. And we like to focus quite heavily on the ANZ market here. So could you tell me what infrastructure and resources you have in this region, and is there any plans to expand, or have you expanded recently? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned that we were formed in 2010. So in 2019, due to demand that we were seeing from this region, we established a team. So we actually have all functions currently sitting in ANZ. So that includes obviously our sales, our pre-sales, we have marketing. We also have our support engineers. We have what we call customer success, which for us, when we look at the technology that we provide to a customer, it's not just about the sell. It's actually about how do we operationalize this technology and how do you get the best out of it. So we have a really robust customer success program, which is designed for that continuous improvement, ensure the product is delivering what it needs to be delivering and meeting the expectations that were set out during that project. And really helping our customers embed this into what they do and really look at the different metrics that we start to see from that. So we have our customer success project team that run around that. It's also based in Australia. And then on top of that, we also have our analysts as well. And we've got another analyst that's based in region. So if something were to occur, a customer can always pick up the phone and say, hey, we need some help, an additional set of eyes on glass. So we have all of our functions here, all available in time zone. When we look at support, by standard, we're 24/7, follow the sun. But it means that if you do need to pick up the phone outside of hours, you will still get someone that's able to help you.
Right, yeah. And speaking of picking up the phone, finally, my last question. If a partner or enterprise end user wanted to engage with Vectra, what is the best way?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously jump onto our website, have a look at what we have on the website. We have a lot of our contacts in there, but also reach out to your resellers and your partners. You know, we spend a lot of time with our reseller community, ensuring that they're skilled up. We put a lot of investment in our channel to make sure that we have local resources with the skill sets that are able to help out our customers. And we have, you know, obviously distribution that helps us ship things around as well. So we've got a lot of capability in country that are able to help you very, very quickly, who understand our technology, who understand our approach, our philosophy, and also just the challenges that we tend to see. You know, we spend a lot of time enabling our partners to make sure that any learnings that we receive around the globe, that we're feeding that back into that partner community.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, that concludes our 10-minute IT Jam with Vectra Head of Security Engineering, Chris Fisher. Thanks so much for joining me today, Chris.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.